Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that your body releases in order to make you feel good. Now, the thing is, dopamine is actually constantly being released 24/7. Now, in order to give you the motivation to do things, that your body actually needs to do, things like eating, drinking, the necessary things, right? Your body will release more dopamine to give you that spike of motivation to go do that thing. And then when you go and do that thing, when you eat food, when you drink water, your body will raise its dopamine levels during the activity. And then after the activity is over, your dopamine levels will actually decline, go below baseline for a little bit, and then return back to normal levels. So essentially, you can think of dopamine as the hook that keeps you addicted to things, whether those things be good or bad. For example, food. You need to be addicted to food in order to live, right? But the type of food that you're addicted to really matters. Water and hydration. Of course you need to hydrate, so you need to be addicted to hydration. Otherwise, if you didn't have the dopamine spikes, you would literally die from dehydration. If you're addicted to sugar and soda as hydration, then that's not necessarily a good thing, right? So the key to dopamine isn't about the addictions, quitting addictions, but it's about choosing what we're actually addicted to, right? Because we can make the conscious choice of what we become addicted to, or the habits that we develop, right? You can call it addictions, you can call it habits. It doesn't really matter, because an addiction is basically a habit that's bad. That's the only difference between an addiction and a habit. It's a habit that's bad. But the good thing is that we have developed this thing called the prefrontal cortex, okay? This is what gives us discipline and willpower. That's why even when you feel unmotivated to do things, you can actually still force yourself to do those things. It sucks and you hate it, but you can still do it. This is what gives us consciousness. This is our unique human ability that animals don't really have control over. So what sets us apart from the rest of the animals is that we can actually decide, even if we're addicted to something or we have a bad habit, we can decide to change that. And so that's what I want to go over today. So as I said before, remember that you always have baseline levels of dopamine, right? And so you can probably remember as a kid, you did things that really excited you. Like there's things that you just can't even explain how much excited you as a kid. And then as you grew older and older, it just became boring, right? Playing with toys, it used to excite you so much. But then over time, it kind of became boring. Going outside and just exploring the world, it used to excite you so much. But you might find that now it's just kind of boring. So what we have to understand is dopamine spikes, right? So let's think of dopamine as a percentage from 0 to 100. Your dopamine levels when you're eating food, your favorite food, for example, will get to like 70, 75% of that 100%. So you feel pretty good doing that. Your dopamine levels of drinking water when you're thirsty are probably 60 to 65%. So you feel pretty good when you're doing that. And so let's set a baseline dopamine level, okay? We'll put it at about 40%, right? So your baseline is 40%, right? You eat your favorite food, it goes up to 75% for a little bit, and then after you finish the food, it goes below 40%, down to 35% for a little bit, and then back up to 45%, or back up to 40%. Now, here's the weird thing. So here's the thing. Now we have ways to hyperstimulate ourselves, right? To give us insane amounts of pleasure. For example, playing video games. For some people, playing video games is gonna raise that dopamine level all the way up to like 150%. 150%, that's more than like drinking the water that you need to survive. 150%, imagine, right? Playing those video games and you're doing it for 5 hours. And so when you finish playing that video game, your dopamine levels are gonna drop to like 20% for a while, and then they're gonna raise back up to 40%. And what research has shown is that the more that we expose ourselves to those high dopamine level activities, right? Like playing video games and scrolling on TikTok all day. The longer that we expose ourselves to those things, the more it lowers our baseline levels of dopamine. So literally, if you expose yourself to those video games all day at 150% the first time, and then the next time you do it, it's only giving you 100% of that pleasure. And the next time it's giving you 80% of that pleasure. And the next time, 50% of that pleasure. And then it goes to baseline, right? And so playing the video games literally just feels the same way that you felt sitting in an empty room. And so imagine after you get off those video games, it goes down to like 10% at that point. If you're playing them for years, it goes down to 10%, your dopamine levels. And then your new baseline is like 20%. So now literally sitting in an empty room feels horrible to you. So weirdly enough, the more that we try to pleasure ourselves, the less pleasure we actually feel, the less happy we feel with our lives. So this was me when I was playing video games every day for years. After years of playing video games, my baseline dopamine levels were so low, and and my baseline happiness was so low that I became dependent on the video games to make me feel good. I became dependent on social media and YouTube to make me feel good. So the thing that research shows is that dopamine levels and happiness are actually correlated. So the higher that we get our baseline dopamine levels, the more happy we're going to be just doing the simple things in life. And so we're just going to be happier overall and more fulfilled with life, with living life. So how do we reset these dopamine levels? As you've heard probably from all the YouTubers, is dopamine detox, right? Staying away from those dopamine levels. And the reason that this is so popular is because it's true. The thing that I don't like about dopamine detox is once you cut out all the distractions and all the things that are giving you dopamine, you have nothing to replace those things with. And so I think this causes a lot of people to relapse and to just go back, and they think they never have a chance at living the lives they want, being more happy. So one of the key things that we need to do is to fill that time, all that time that we spend playing video games, right? Because the thing is, you don't play those games, you don't do any of those things anymore. Now you're just in an empty room. You have no idea what to do. If I was in that situation, I'd want to relapse and just play the games all day because I would have no idea what to do. So one of the most fulfilling things that I did, right? One of the things that helped me out the most with when I started detoxing from dopamine was going to the gym, right? And the thing that this does is it gives you something to work on. And it's going to give you enough dopamine to keep wanting to go to the gym and to not want to play the video games, to not want to do all those bad habits, right? So the first thing that you want to do when you want to quit something that you want to stop doing is you have to fill that time with something else that's productive, something else that you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting in a room bored and you're going to relapse. And for me, the best thing was the gym because I could see results, I could make new friends, and I'd be somewhere outside of the house where I'd be more likely to relapse on those things. And I found getting outside of the house really helps removing these distractions. And so over time, the gym would only spike my dopamine this much. The video games would spike my dopamine insane levels, which make me sadder. So I'd get that spike of dopamine from the gym and then come back home, and it was actually increasing my dopamine levels overall, my baseline dopamine. And so I got more and more fulfilled from just doing simple everyday things. And so I noticed I just felt happier, and I basically turned my life into almost like a video game, right? I was doing all the things that I would do in a video game, exploring the world, talking to friends, doing things that are challenging me, right? Working on my goals. And I just turned my life into like a video game, and it feels now like I'm playing a video game. As I'm recording this video, it literally feels like I'm playing a video game, finishing like a quest or something. So once we start detoxing from dopamine, it allows us to basically turn our lives into how we actually want them to be. Instead of fulfilling our lives playing the video games, right? We fulfill our actual real lives, our real life progress, all of those things. And that's going to bring our dopamine levels back to normal. And when your dopamine levels are back to normal, you're going to be happier and you're going to have a lot more motivation and a better mindset towards life. So start today, go to the gym, go for a workout, maybe even go for a run. And if you don't have a gym membership, go down into the description. I have a link there that's for a full Olympic ring workout. You can check that out. My name's Justin, and remember, you deserve the consequences of your actions. Start living today.